Check the mic and make sure it sound right, boys.
Hey everybody, what's good with you? Sean and Brad, the A&B show, back in your ear, in your face, wherever you get your podcast from. Thanks for subscribing. Thanks for being here. If you're not a subscriber, hit that thing up. You can find us everywhere you get your podcasts, YouTube, all that fun stuff. And let us know what you think of the show. We'll take your emails, holler us when you see us in the streets, just like Dan Ward did today. So thanks, Dan. Appreciate you. I'm Brad Tesh, co-host of the show with my buddy Sean. He'll tell you his last name because it's French. And we are Pacific Northwest kids. Now, that's where we're coming from live. We do a lot of things sports related, but also on some other stuff. Tonight, actually, we just witnessed LeBron James break the scoring record. So it's a big deal. Signed off for that. Sean conducted an interview earlier tonight. I think you guys are going to like it. We actually spent the last hour or so kind of in the green room talking with Cameron. So he'll be back on the show. So hopefully you guys like that interview Sean had with him. And it was great to talk to him. I wish I'd have been able to make it earlier. I was running basketball practice for, 7-year-old girls, so I couldn't make it.
Hey, this is a good man. Salt of the earth right here. Running some basketball drills.
Yes, I'm more salty because I didn't shower yet, but...
But, stay tuned for this interview.
You gonna tell him who I was with?
Yeah, Cameron Kinley. Cameron Kinley was literally in the news last year. His story is great. He's got a book coming out. He's going to be talking about it. Plus, he's also co-host of Under the Rug podcast. So check that out as well.
That's right. Stay tuned. Ask your questions later. We'll be right back.
Hey, everybody. Welcome here to the A&B PNW Sports Show. Man, we are really on it right now. We are missing the B, but I added a C. I got Cameron Kinley here.
What's going on?
And we're really excited to have you on the show here.
No, I appreciate you for having me, man. Definitely excited.
So, Cameron, I've been well, besides meeting you.
Right. Probably a month ago at this point.
Yeah. So besides meeting you, I actually did some reading on you as well, because I'll never forget Brad actually telling me, because we were talking about your story, and Brad was like, well, I know this guy, and he was going through this thing. It doesn't sound right. And then ending up that, well, you're that guy.
It's funny you say that, because over the past year that has happened to me so much. Like, people might be like, oh, did you try to play football? And I know we'll get into the story a little bit. I'm like, yeah, and this happened, blah, blah, blah. They was like, oh, yeah, I heard that happened to some other guy. Like, big thing about it. I was like, yeah, that was me. And they're like, wait, what? I'm like, yeah. So that's funny that you say that.
It was hilarious, because I remember I was saying, man, yeah, like, I'm working with this guy right now, and, he's an officer in the Navy, and, he was on the Bucks. He goes, sounds eerily familiar to this one guy. And it's like, yeah. I mean, right. You were the captain of the Navy midshipmen. Mm-hmm. Who won, by the way, is the
Army-Navy?
Yeah, the Army-Navy game when you were playing.
So, unfortunately, when I was at Navy, we went 1-3 against Army. So,
come on.
Yeah, we beat them my junior year. I think at that point, they were on that 3-year streak. And so then my junior year, we beat them and ended that little streak that they had. Because, we had been on I want to say it was either 13 wins in a row or 14 years in a row when I was a senior in high school. Right. And then Army ended up beating Navy. And then I got there, we lost the first 2 years. And then my junior year, when we went 11-2, we were pretty good that year. We got them pretty well.
11-2?
Yeah, we finished like 23 in the country. Wow. That year. Wow. I think that's tied for like the most wins in school history too. Like, we got the tie with some other team, so yeah.
Well, I'm trying to think about some of the people that came out of Navy. I think Staubach.
Yeah, Roger Staubach. Right? Yeah. You always see him around the facility at least a couple of times during the football season, so that's pretty cool. Got Keenan Reynolds, who was in the running for the Heisman back in like 2015. He had a shot in the NFL. And then, it's been a lot of good athletes. We got a long snapper that still plays for the Patriots right now, Joe Cardona. And then our quarterback, my junior year, Malcolm Perry, he was drafted by the Miami Dolphins. And so he just got out. He's about to transition into the Marine Corps. But it's definitely been There's definitely been a lot of talent to come from the academy.
Yeah. And just hearing about right now some of the people that you were on the team with, and you were the captain of the defense. Then is that it?
So my senior year. So I didn't play with any of those guys, but my senior year. My senior year. So the way it works, we elect like 3 to 4 captains.
Yeah.
Typically, like after camp or typically it's after spring ball because of COVID. We didn't have spring ball,
right.
So we did ours after fall camp. And the players just submit who they want the captain to be. So that was an honor, one of the biggest things at the academy. A lot of the positions are chosen by the higher ups. Like you go through boarding processes, interviews. So a lot of the striper billets are chosen by the higher commanding officers on the yard. But team captain and class president, those are the only 2 positions where your peers elect you. And
right.
So when I discovered that my teammates had entrusted me to be their captain, it was a blessing, it was a privilege, and I didn't take it lightly, and I knew I owed them a certain level of leadership.
So why Navy at the end of the day? I mean, I would imagine that you could probably went to any school at some point. Is it because of your grandfather's legacy that he was a retired chief in the Navy?
Yeah, so my dream school was Vanderbilt, like to tell you the truth, Vanderbilt University. So I got an older sister. She's 2 years older than me. And so I remember I had to be in like 8th grade, maybe 7th or 8th grade, and she was doing something at Vandy, and we went to go tour the campus, and I just fell in love with it. I'm from Memphis, it's in Nashville, 3 hours away. I'm like, perfect academics, SEC football. At that time, I wanted to be a doctor. They got a good medical program. And so in my eyes, I'm like, this is the golden path to do everything I want to do in life. And so I grew up playing football, so I was pretty competitive all the way through. Then when I got to 8th grade, I was riding the bench, right, as an 8th grader. Right. And reality started to kick in. Like in 8th grade, that's when you start hearing about other kids in your class, like when you go to 8th and 9th grade, and then these rankings come out, and I'm like, man, these kids are good, right? I'm riding the bench in 8th grade. These people are doing this. Like, I'm behind. Right. And so I was probably 5'6", 115 pounds as a freshman in high school. So I had the blessing of having a dad who played in college, though. An older brother who played in college and then the NFL for a couple of years. So they kind of knew what I needed to do to get to where I wanted to go. Right. And so they just kept it real with me, and I'm thankful for that. He was like, my dad set me down after my freshman year. I was like, hey, if you want to play football in college, you got some work to do. And so I put in work, and then finally, long story short, after my junior year, I started to get some interest from Vandy. Right. And they came to the school, and they said, at this time, I had my Navy offer. But truth be told, I didn't know anything about the service academies. I had Navy, Army, and Air Force. My only connection was my grandfather, who was a retired chief, and I got a cousin in D.C. who also served for 5 years. But I didn't know anything about the military. Right. So I wasn't really looking into it. I was still focused on Vandy. And so the Vanderbilt coach came to my high school. He came to our office. He said, hey, like, grades good. You got the frame. You got the size. Your film looks good. You come to the camp this summer. You perform. We're going to offer you on the spot. So I'm like, this is it, right? I'm like, yeah. All I got to do is go out here, have a good day, great day, and then I get my offer. I'm committing. Like it was no thoughts about it. This is my dream school. And so I go to the camp, and I kid you not, I don't just say this. Like I had the best camp of my life. Like the video is still on YouTube from the camp. Like I'm catching one-hand interceptions, like not giving up passes. It's crazy, man. Like I felt out of body, right? It's like even my teammates are like, man, what are you doing? Like I was like, I don't know. Like everything's just coming naturally, right? And so at the end of the camp, I'm like, man, like I'm for sure about to get this offer. I'm like, it's in the bag. Yeah. And talking to the coach. And they're just like, yeah, we want to see some more film. I was like, man, but y'all said if I come here and I perform, like, easily the best looking DB out there, and I didn't get the offer. And that was a rude awakening for me into the political side of recruiting and whatnot. But what did come out of that day, I had the Yale coach there who had been recruiting me, and he offered me. And then after that, I ended up getting offers from all 8 Ivy League schools back to back to back to back. And so going into my senior year, I had the service academies, the Ivies, some more FCS programs. I was talking to a couple at BS. And, as a high school kids, like everybody has this dream of going Power 5. Right. SEC, Big 10, Big 12, Pac-12, everybody has that. And so you can have 15 plus offers like I had, Division I, but you're still waiting for one of these bigger schools to come in late into the game. Right. But when I got to school that year, I had a lot of teachers talking to me about the service academies, especially like the Naval Academy in particular. It just happened, like they had been up there and visited it, and they're like, hey, like, you need to look at this opportunity. And so as a 17-year-old at high school, you think of military, all you think about is what you're missing out on, especially college, right? You've been in your parents' house, you want college to be college.
Yeah.
And so when you hear like, oh, give 4 years for 40, you're like, I'm not thinking about 40 years. Like, I want to go have fun. But I was also, my parents did a great job of raising me. So when my elders spoke to me, like when I heard advice from adults, I typically heeded their advice and listened to it. So I was like, let me look into this a little bit more. And I mean, it came down to it. I visited Air Force, I visited Princeton, and I visited Navy. And when I got on Navy's campus, I just felt like this is it. And it wasn't even like a place that I wanted to go, truthfully, right? But I felt like it was where God wanted me to be next for my journey. And I knew that I grew up pretty comfortable in Memphis, like had most of everything I needed. This was going to be an opportunity for me to get uncomfortable and to grow as a man. It's
amazing that you said that as well, because it's like, how many people on their graduating day, because you were like, I believe one of the if not the spokesperson there.
Yeah.
On their graduating day as a keynote speaker.
Yeah.
As the vice president there at the graduation.
Yeah, it's full circle. And you know, it's crazy. I always think about the fact, and that was a crazy experience. And we can get into that more a little bit later, but I always think about, you know, what if I wouldn't have gone to Navy?
Right.
Like, the things that have occurred in my life the past like 4 to 5 years because I made that decision as a 17-year-old to go do something that I didn't exactly want to do, but I knew that God had in store for me to do, and like trusting in his plan at that age. If I wouldn't have done that, I would have missed out on so much. And I don't know who I would have been today. And it's funny, when I was in the 6th grade, I actually wrote a speech. It was about Naval Academy athletes and what make them unique. Like, it was a speech contest. Yeah. Wow. And I had no idea about, like I said, I knew nothing about it. I was just looking for an interesting topic. So and I found that.
Self-prophetic.
Right. Yeah, it was like a prophecy. And when I was getting recruited by Navy, I was like, well, you remember I wrote that speech? She was like, yeah, what? I was like, do you remember what it was about? She was like, no. I was like, I wrote about like Naval Academy athletes. And she was like, oh, that's crazy. But to see all that come full circle is, it's definitely wild. It's definitely wild.
I mean, and so, like, you go out there, you get your education in political science. I'm still certain, though, that you're thinking, man, I want to play in the NFL.
Yeah. So, truth be told, when I went to Navy, I had no aspirations for the NFL.
None.
Truth be told, zero. Right?
Okay.
So, my whole mission with football was to make sure my parents didn't have to pay for college. I wanted to get into the best school that I could get into, academic-wise and whatnot. And I didn't want my parents to pay a dime because they invested in private school for me and my siblings. It was 4 of us, so money was tight, and I knew they didn't have to do that. And so I was like, for them to invest in my education at this age, I can't have them pay for college. And so I always took care of my academics and my athletics to get to that position. Once I got to college, I was like, you know, I just want to have a good experience, and then I'll be ready to transition. I was too competitive for that, though, right? Like, freshman year, I get up there, man, and so Navy, we're in the AAC, so we play Memphis twice.
Right.
We play Memphis every year, but twice at home. And so my freshman year was one of the years we were going back to Memphis to play. Naval Academy is you probably got 150 kids on a roster, like, and so you only have like 54 that can travel. And so we have a JV team, you have people playing scout team. And you get there, you don't know that for real. You're like, you walk into the meeting room and you're like 8th on the depth chart. Wow. And I'm like, man, like, I got to go to Memphis. You know, I got to make this travel roster. So in order to do that, I had to be in the top 3 strings. And so that was my motivation my plebe year. Like, simply make the travel roster so I can go to Memphis. Make the travel roster so I can go to Memphis.
It's so simple.
Yeah, you know, I was like, I can't let this game come around and my family and friends are like, oh, why are you not here? You know, and I'm like, oh, I didn't make this travel. So that was my motivation.
Yeah.
And that drive, it allowed me to make it happen. And so Memphis game finally comes around. I'm in my hometown. I got everybody there. And I get like some of my first collegiate action out there on punt return. And I just get smoked off the line. Like, smoked. And I get back to school that Monday and my position coach calls me in the office. He's like, you know, feel like you got a lot of potential, but we just don't think you're there right now. Like, so we're gonna move you down the scout team. And that was like one of those other turning points in my career where it was like, you go from being a high school state champion, you know, going 14-0, feeling like you're on the top of the world, get to college, and now you're holding bags on scout team. Like, that's just not the dream that anybody has.
Right.
And so I remember calling my dad. I was like, you know, like, I'm cool. Like, I think I'm done with football. Like, maybe this is all that I had in store. Like, I'd rather just focus on grades than be out here holding the bag on scout team. And my dad, football coached me my whole life. Of course, he wasn't going for that. And he told me to go read a letter that he had wrote me when I was in basic training. And it was the first letter I received. And in it, it had Jeremiah 29:11. For I know the plans I have for you, declares the Lord, plans to prosper you, not to harm you, to give you a hope and a future. And that became my guiding verse for my years at the Naval Academy from then on out. And I gained strength knowing that there was a plan. And that plan wasn't exactly saying like, oh, if you trust in me, like, I'm going to make sure you're an All-American, right? But it's like, I have something in store for you in this experience. Keep going through it. And so I just kept working. I played scout team for the rest of the year, my freshman year. And then sophomore year, I was lucky enough to start getting into the rotation, started a couple of games. And then junior year, everything clicked, and I started all 14 games. And that was the year we went number 23 in the country. And so I'm like, man, this is great. Still at the time, no, I'm not really thinking about professional, right? I'm like, I'm just enjoying it. And then my senior year rolls around. I'm like, this is it. Last year playing ball, got to go out with a bang. Get elected team captain, finalist for the academic Heisman, you know, like one of 7 or something like that. I'm like, I'm literally on top of the world. Like, this is exactly how, like, I would want to go out playing football. Halfway through the year, man, I get called into my position coach's office, and he says, you know, like, we're at this point, I think we're 3-3. Like, I'm having a decent year, like, making some plays, making some mistakes. You know, it's typical, but decent, right? Could be better, but it wasn't too bad. But he calls me in his office. He says, you know, we're going to go with something different this week. I'm like, okay, cool. Like, different scheme, game plan.
Right.
He's like, nah, like, you're not going to be starting. I'm like,
What?
You know?
Yeah.
I'm like, at this point, I've started probably 19, 20 games in my career, whatever.
Okay.
And I'm like, and I'm on like a 18 game or I don't know. But as the team captain, that's a tough pill to swallow.
Yeah.
Because now you're put in a position to where you're not getting what you want, but the team still needs something from you because you're the captain. And that was one of those other turning points in my career, man. Halfway through my senior season as the team captain, I got benched. And I would play a little bit more the rest of the season. Like, I think I started another game or two just because somebody was hurt.
Right.
Well, I started one game because somebody was hurt, and then the other game we played Memphis, so they let me start, play one drive, came out the game. And so that's why I said, you mentioned Army Navy my senior year, man. It's funny. So Army Navy senior year, I don't get in, right? And that game, you know, I'm going into the game excited, like it's Army Navy, best rivalry in college football. I'm doing interviews on CNN, talking to New York Times, like it's cool. But when the game starts, you know, I start getting faced with the reality that I'm probably not going to play.
Right.
And not only that, but this is probably it for me in my career, right? 18 years of playing football, and here we are, you know?
That's got to be a little bit of a bittersweet
for sure.
feeling, right?
For sure. And so I remember that game, man. We ended up losing, but Army started putting it away in the fourth quarter, man. And I got in for the last, like, 2 plays.
Yeah.
And literally Army was just taking knees. And I remember, like, I get in the game finally. And it's when I think back to it, I just remember how I'm feeling. But I'm watching Army take a knee, and I'm looking at the clock, and I'm just looking at the seconds tick off the clock. And to everybody in the stadium, that probably meant the game was about to be over. But to me, I'm like, man, these are the final seconds ticking off of my career.
Right.
And game ended, and I just remember walking across the field at Mitchie Stadium and not hearing anything, like not paying attention to anything going on. I'm literally in my own world.
Just like a tunnel.
Yeah, it's tunnel vision, like really trying to take in everything that had transpired. And I just was like, man, I don't think this is supposed to be it. Like, there's no 18 years playing football. I was like, there's no way that this is the ending that God had for me. I just didn't feel that at the time, right? And so get home for Christmas break. I got a younger brother. He's 2 years younger than me. He plays football at MTSU. And so we always would come home and work out, right? So I'm working out in the garage with them, and I'm like, I'm working out with him and my dad. And I'm like, what y'all think about if I tried to go to the NFL? And my dad was like, that's one regret that I always had. Like, I look back on it, I'm like, what if I would have tried? And my little brother was like, you're a hard enough worker to make it happen, but if you commit to it, you got to commit to it.
Right.
But on the inside, I had a lot of fear. Like, truth be told, it was like a big fear, insecurity.
I can see that because it's like, especially when you've been benched and everything like that,
it was insecurity.
It's going to play something mentally, right?
Exactly. Yeah. And so I had a lot of insecurity. Like, am I good enough? This and that. Like, what happens when I fail? Like, everybody's going to be talking about me. But like I said, I just felt like God was trying to tell me to do something. And it's just like when I committed to Navy when I was 17, it was like God was telling me to do something.
Right.
And I felt like he was pushing me to do something. That was not me saying like, oh, if I go after this, I'm going to make it to the NFL. But he was like, I got something to show you.
Right.
And so when I was home for Christmas, I said, you know what? I'm going to go after this dream.
Yeah. I got to tell you right now, what an amazing father you have.
Oh, yeah, for sure. For sure.
I mean, to even know the letter too as well, right? He knows the letters.
Yep.
That had to have been something that would keep somebody like definitely like a how can I say it, like a type. You know what I mean, of like what God could be like. It's like a type that it's like, well, I see this, he really cares for me, he has instilled this for me, he knows these letters. And to even get you back to that Jeremiah 29, I mean, what a Bible verse.
Yeah, that's my guiding verse.
Like that's amazing.
I even got it tattooed on me that December. That was my first tattoo, but it's
man. So then you go August. I guess for training camp.
Well, so at this point it's December of 2020.
Okay.
Yeah, so this is when I make the decision. Now it's time to make it happen, right? And so obviously, I'm not on anybody's radar. Like nobody knows who I am, truthfully. So I signed with an agent. He played at the academy, and so he was first year being an agent, first year having the agency, him and one of his partners. And so I was like, okay, I know they're gonna invest in me because it's their first year. Like they got as much in it as I do, right? And so boom, right after that, a week later, I get an invite to the College Gridiron Showcase in Texas. So this is the year of COVID. So NFL Combine was canceled. A lot of the All-Star games were canceled. So there's really only like 3 main events. In this College Gridiron Showcase, you had the Senior Bowl, of course, and then you had the Hula Bowl in Hawaii. And so College Gridiron Showcase, I get down there in Texas, and it's like more than 50 scouts, right? And it's players from all over, like all the Power 5 schools. I mean, D2, just a bunch of prospects. And obviously coming from the situation I was coming from, being benched, like nobody really knowing who I am, like I'm very insecure. Like truth be told, I get down, I'm like very insecure, very nervous. Like I'm like, man, like I need to do something. Like I gotta make stuff happen. So first night we check in, they have us all in this room, all the players in this room, and they have people that are working the event. They're coming into the room and they're calling players to go talk to the scouts. All the scouts were in like the big old ballroom or whatever, like table set up. And so I'm in there just talking to people, meeting people. Some people I had played against, so some people we had mutual connections, so we're just talking. And the guys are coming in, calling players, they're leaving, going to talk to scouts. And I'll be talking to a guy sometimes, he could get called, he'd go back, I'll start talking to somebody else. Hours roll by, I still hadn't gotten called. Right. And at first I wasn't really thinking about it, but then I started looking around the room, and I'm like, man, it's probably only like 2 or 3 of us that haven't gotten our name called, right? It's 80 plus, 100 plus players in there, right? And so the guy comes around for the last time, and he's like, hey, like, this is the final call. Like, these are the last guys we need. If your name wasn't called, like, you can basically go to the hotel room. And I just remember, like, trying to, like, fight back tears at that moment. Like, man, this is embarrassing, right? And I get back to my hotel. I just go to my hotel room. I kind of, like, crash out on my bed. I'm just like, man, like, what am I thinking that I could have done this? Right. Like, who am I to think I can go from not playing in college and nobody really knowing about me to making it to the NFL, right? Right. And so at the academy, you're given a sponsor family, right, your freshman year. And so it just so happened, like, probably a week before that, my sponsor mom had passed away from cancer. Oh. Yeah. And when I had declared for the draft, she had texted me and was like, so proud of you. Like, this couldn't happen to a more deserving person. And when I was in my room, like just facing the pillows, like just looking at the ceiling, like what am I doing? I just happened to get a text from my sponsor dad. And he was just like, I'm proud of you. And so her name was Teresa. He was like, Teresa would be proud of you too. Mm-hmm. And I was like, yeah, like I got a different type of fuel behind me. And at that moment, I was like, I'm going to dedicate this. It's like a combine type event.
Right.
I was like, I'm going to dedicate that to her tomorrow. And that was kind of my why in that moment to get me through. One thing I realized in life is like when you're going through different like tough circumstances, you're not always going to have the same driving force to get you through. Like sometimes in those moments, you got to find something else. Like you got to find your why. You got to find something to keep you moving forward. And in that moment, it was my sponsor mom. And it kind of like made me realize like, man, you're supposed to be here too. Like this is an opportunity, like life is so much bigger than this. Like just go take advantage of the opportunity, go play ball.
Right.
And the next day I got out there and I balled out a little bit, did pretty well. And I mean, I talked to one scout after, it's Kansas City Chiefs. But that's all I needed to really keep moving forward.
Right.
And so that was a good experience for me, just as a man to like grow, being in that uncomfortable situation, learning how to block out the noise and just go perform and focus on something bigger. And then after that, I got invited to the Hula Bowl in Hawaii. And it was like I was starting to slowly see God unfolding everything. And I got to the Hula Bowl. Didn't really want to go to the Hula Bowl, truth be told, just because my insecurities. Like the combine, it was simple. I was like, it's just drill work.
Right.
Hula Bowl, full pads. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
I'm like, tackling was always my weakness. So I was like, man, now I got to get out here and tackle in front of these scouts. Like that's probably why I lost my job my senior year. But I'm like, man, it's just that fear, man. Fear is a very powerful thing, and you can allow it to control you, or you can allow it to like promote you almost, right? It's like you gotta learn. And what I realized is like fear doesn't go anywhere. Right. Like it doesn't matter who you are. You can't really tell me that you don't fear anything. It's just you figure out.
That's lies.
You just figured out how to deal with your fear.
That's it.
You don't let fear control you, but fear is always present. It's just what volume of fear is present in your life.
Exactly.
Yeah.
I mean, it's funny, right? When you mention about fear, and then the words of Winston Churchill comes in from World War II, that whole entire speech, and it's like just the end of it. There's nothing to fear but fear itself, and it's like, you're absolutely. How do you channel that fear?
Yeah.
Right?
Exactly.
How do you make that work for you?
For me, as a man of faith, I feel like fear gives way to faith. So the more fear I encounter, it's like the more faith I gotta have in God.
Man, that is so good.
It's like the more fear that I have, the more I need to lean on God. It just shows that I'm not trusting in God enough.
Yeah.
Like for me personally, and so anytime I found myself in those situations, it's like, you need to lean on God a little bit more. That's it. Like God got something to show you. Like I said, like when I embarked on that journey, I didn't really know what was to come of it, but I knew that God had something to show me.
That's it.
And one of the lessons I've taken away from that journey is like how to deal with fear. Like God has equipped me how to deal with fear. And so even moments today where I feel like scared or something like that, I just lean on my faith. Yeah. And I think about what God has already brought me through. And I'm like,
He doesn't have plans
he got plans for you, to prosper you.
Yeah.
And so I truly believe in that. And so I go to the Hula Bowl and I do pretty decent out there, get some more teams on the radar. Right. And then life is so funny. It's like as soon as you think you got everything going well, something else hits you in the face, right?
Right.
And so COVID-19 environment, the Naval Academy, man, we were on lockdown.
Right.
Like, just because we all live in the same dorm, like we couldn't afford for anybody to go off campus and get COVID. So we were stuck on campus. And not only that, our facilities were closed, like weight room, all that's closed. And like when you're trying to go to the NFL, you got to do a pro day, got to do a combine, and you're doing 225 rep tests. You got to run 40 vertical shuttle, right? I think you need access to a weight room to do that. Kind of. And
push-ups ain't gonna cut it.
It can only do so much for you. And so guys are trained, like guys don't even like do their last semester of college. They go train in like Florida, Texas, Cali, Arizona, whatever it might be. And here I am, like finishing up my degree at the Naval Academy. That's not something that's easy. And on top of that, I'm having to train in the COVID environment, right? So we get an hour a day outside. And I had one other teammate at the time who was going after Miles Fells, and like just having him there as an accountability partner helped. Like we both held each other accountable, getting it in every day, making the most of our situation. I had a strength coach who would send me virtual workouts, and we would do the workouts, record each other, send them to him. He'll text us feedback, annotate the videos, and we'll go out the next day and do it again. So it was not ideal to be training for the NFL like that. But at the end of the day, it's like you got to work with what you have. And so I remember doing pull-ups on my shower, doing push-ups and stuff, trying to get ready for the 225.
Dude, come on.
And then it's crazy. No, it's pull-ups on the shower. I'll show you the videos, man. It's like, this is real. And then, like, I remember I had a track. And at the time, by the way, we don't even know if we're having a pro day. Like, while we were doing all this, like, making these sacrifices, we don't even know if we're even going to have a pro day to go participate in, right? And so I remember one day, one of my friends that ran track, he was like, hey, like, I think I got something that can help you out. And I'm like, what you mean? Like, all the facilities closed. Like, there's nothing you can do for me for real. And he was like, no, like, we got this shed next to our track. And he was like, it's a barbell in there. Like, we got some weights. Like,
was it like something like from the 60s or something?
I'm telling you. He's like, he might be able to make something happen. And so I meet him there the next day. And man, we got a yoga mat on the ground. And we have this barbell, which probably has about 205 on it, rusty barbell. And we're on a yoga mat. And so I would lay down on the yoga mat. He'd give me the bar and I'm benching. But that's like a chest press, Yeah. But it's all I got.
Yeah.
And so then we kept doing that for a couple of days. And then finally I started looking around a little bit more. And I found like some mats, like the kind of padding that they put behind a basketball goal in the gym.
Yeah.
And we kind of stacked those up probably about that high. And I would get on it and he'll hand me the bar over. And that's how
that was your bench.
And it's like, you make the most of your circumstances.
That's it.
But as time started to pass, I realized like still not looking like we're going to have a pro day here at Navy.
Right.
And so the policy is like, if your school doesn't host one, you can go to a local school or go to your hometown.
Okay.
And so I hit up one of my high school coaches to hit up the University of Memphis to see if they'll let me come. And this is why it's so important to like just be a good person.
Yeah.
Right? Because this is a rival school in conference, whatnot. But he knew my character. The head coach at Memphis knew my character, and he didn't hesitate to let me come down there. Right? And I just remember watching like the interviews when they were asking him, like, like he's from a rival school, but you're allowing a hometown kid to come back. And he was like, have you met this guy? And I say that with like all humility because it's like my parents always taught me, the focus on being a good person. Like people are going to know you by your fruit.
Yeah.
And in the long run, that's what pays off. And so I was able to go to Memphis and do my pro day. And that's when some insecurities kicked in again because like these are some high level prospects. Like they got Kenneth Gainwell who plays for the Eagles. He's there. So all 32 teams are there. And these guys have been training for months in their own facilities, and I've been getting it in on my own almost. Well, with my teammate and my coach,
pulling a Rocky Balboa in Russia.
Exactly. It's like, man. But I get there and I perform pretty well. And after that pro day, I'm talking like 14 teams. Yeah, and then I ended up getting an interview with NFL, which I still don't understand. I don't know how it happened today, but I did an interview with Good Morning Football on NFL Network. Like like a week before the draft. And I could see the light at the end of the tunnel. Didn't think I would get drafted, but I was like, I'm gonna at least get a phone call for the draft. And so NFL draft rolls around. I'm with my family in DC. Got everybody up there. Don't get drafted. A little disappointed. Not that like I said, I didn't expect to, but it still was tough having all your loved ones around and you don't see your name get called. And we were at a restaurant in DC, and I remember walking out of the restaurant, and my cousin was in DC. He's like basically like an uncle to me since I've been up there at the academy. And I'm crying, and we're walking down the street, and he's like, it's all good. Like you've accomplished things in your life. Like we always say, God just help me understand. Give me the clarity to help me understand what you're trying to do. By the time we get to the end of the street, I got a call from my agent, and he said that the Chiefs wanted to sign me. And I was like, what? Let's do it. And then like right after that, he called me and said the Buccaneers wanted to sign me. And I was like, I'd rather go to Tampa. My dad had played with one of their coaches in college. And so I was like, I'd rather go somewhere where I got a mutual connection. And I mean,
you sure it was that?
And I was like, TB12? Also it's Tampa. They just won the Super Bowl. They got Hall of Famers. They got the GOAT. So I'm like, I'm going to go to Tampa, right? But man, you talk about a crazy journey just getting that call. And like, it just felt unreal.
Right.
It's like, man, this is stuff you think about when you're 4 or 5 years old. You first start playing the game. And
I can't even fathom it. I can't even fathom it.
I typically try to I do a lot of reflection just on my life. I think it's a good practice to do, and I just try to remember the emotions I had in that moment, and it's like it still feels unreal. Right. You know, getting a phone call, seeing your mom crying, embracing her, seeing the look in your dad's face, like man, you really just did this.
Dude, know, you're there, and you could taste now. I'm so close.
Yeah,
to
it's
to doing this.
Everything's in your hand, and when you work for something and it wasn't given to you, it just feels so much better. That's why I don't take shortcuts in life, because of that type of situation. It's I know what it feels like to literally put everything on the line, not knowing what's gonna come of it. Right. Not knowing if it's gonna be worth it. Training, not knowing if you're gonna have a pro day. You know, declaring for the draft, not knowing if you even get invited to the showcase or the Hula Bowl. You know what I'm saying? Yeah. When I declared, none of that stuff was in motion. I had no idea about the College Gridiron Showcase, no idea about the Hula Bowl. All I knew was I felt God was nudging me to move forward. And like I said before, that wasn't me saying I felt like God was telling me, hey, I'm going to make sure you make it to the NFL. But I felt like God was like, hey, I got a journey to take you on. And I'm not going to tell you how it's going to result, but I got a journey to take you on. And you're going to be better because of it. Right. And so signed the NFL contract. And that's where I was at that moment, May 1st. Right.
So you're there at rookie camp, right? You're there. Were you already working with the military in order to get your
this is where everything is
exemption?
Crazy. This is where everything is crazy.
Yeah.
So after I declared in December of 2020, January 2021. Me and a couple other guys that were trying to go, we had a meeting with the school. So at the time, it's a policy, DTM 0911, I think. I used to know it by heart, but now I don't. I think that's it, though. So President Trump put that policy in 2019 to allow service academy athletes to delay their commissioning and go play in the NFL. Right. You basically submit a waiver, right? So it's a policy.
Right.
My quarterback the year before, Malcolm Perry, had used it. Some guys from Army, some guys from Air Force had used it. So it's an active policy, right? People had already done it. And so cool. So we meet with them. I tell them hey, this is what I want to do. They're like, okay, cool. They're like, at the time, you know what I'm saying? Nobody really thinks I can make it happen.
Right.
Right. And so they're basically like, let's wait to see what happens before we submit the package. We just don't want to go through this hassle to submit it. Then you don't get picked up.
Right.
Now you're commissioning wait. It makes sense.
Yeah.
But to me, it was kind of almost a slap in the face because you don't believe I can do it, but whatever. And so.
It is. Honestly, it should be already put out there. Yeah,
because it's supposed to be. The package has to be submitted 90 days prior to graduation, right? But they said, "Oh, we did the same thing for Malcolm." So I'm like, "Cool." I'm not Malcolm though, but cool, whatever.
Yeah.
I'm like, whatever. I got faith in God. Whatever's gonna work out. So cool. So that was in January. So after I get signed, now we're moving the muscle a little bit faster, and we get the package submitted, and. Is they're like, everything's going to be fine, everything's going to be good to go. So I get that submitted. Go down to rookie mini camp 2 weeks after the draft. It's May 14th, May 13th. So I get down there to rookie mini camp, and being an undrafted rookie, right, free agent, trying to make a team, you got to stand out early. Right. You're at least just small, you got to make stuff happen. And so going down there, rookie mini camp is really like a walkthrough, though, almost. It's just for rookies to get acclimated to the team. It's only us down there and a couple guys that they have trying out, but the vets aren't there, 2-year guys aren't there. It's literally just the rookies for real. And so I'm like, man, I gotta find a way to make a play. I was like, I gotta do something to stand out to show that I hold some kind of value. And I remember first practice, man, I was the same thing. When I was down there in Tampa in the hotel room, it's crazy. I was in the hotel room feeling the same kind of fear, insecurity. This is after, signing the NFL contract. Right. You would think I got some more faith in myself and some confidence. Yeah. But I'm still man, I don't feel like I belong down here. I'm nervous, scared of failing. And I was in my room the night before before the first day of rookie minicamp. I got a text from my little brother, and there's a picture of a journal entry. I'm looking at it, I'm like, what is this? And it was a journal entry he had wrote when I was in Hawaii for the Hula Bowl. And it's basically him just asking God to give me the strength and the confidence. He was like, I believe he's a great player. He just gets down on himself sometimes, but make this happen for him. He deserves it. And I was like, man, like I said earlier, I feel like in different situations you find a why to drive you forward.
Yeah.
And so that was the boost I needed that night. Get to rookie minicamp, first day of practice, I get a pick 6. And so that was all I needed to be like, yeah, I belong.
Yeah.
And I had a pretty good rookie mini camp, making plays, you know, articles coming out like, oh, undrafted rookie.
Yes.
You know, it's like, this guy got a shot. I was like, they're like, he might make the team. Like, he looks really good out here.
Yeah.
And I'm like, you know, Galatians 6:9 says, don't give up because in proper time you'll reap a harvest. You know, don't grow weary in doing what's right because you're going to reap a harvest. And so when I was in Tampa that first time, I really felt like this was my harvest.
Right.
You know, everything I had been through, all the things I had overcome, like I was finally, and this is like from when I was in 8th grade riding the bench, being undersized in 9th grade, Vandy not offering, you know, all of that I felt led to this moment. I'm like, I'm finally reaping the harvest.
Right.
Like, I was on top of the world. And so had to go back to Navy to graduate the next week. I was class president, and so I had the opportunity to give a speech at graduation. So I'm, you know, just signed an NFL contract, about to speak at the Naval Academy graduation, meet the vice president, first African-American woman to be vice president. You can't paint a better picture for my life right now. Like, I'm on top of
this is like, yeah, like it's like,
you know, I'm on top of the world.
Yeah.
And so I get back to Navy on that Monday or Sunday night, go through the day Monday. At my sponsor's house Monday, I get an email. It's from the commandant of midshipmen. It was basically like our dean of students almost. And it was an email, like a meeting request for tomorrow. I'm like, a meeting request? Like, why does the commandant want to meet with me? I'm like, maybe some graduation planning or something. But then I click on the email and it's me, my battalion officer, and there was a guy in my grade that was trying to play professional baseball. He was in the email and his battalion officer was in the email. So I was like, can't be good. So I text my battalion officer. I'm like, hey, sir, do you know anything about this? And he's like, no. I'm like, and so I barely sleep that night. Mm-hmm. Like, I'm restless. I'm like, man, this can't be good. Go to the meeting the next day, and we're in the conference room. It's the four of us, and then the commandant walks in, and he's like, hey, I called y'all into this meeting because, unfortunately, the acting secretary of the Navy didn't approve y'all's package to go play professional sports. And I just remember, like, just sitting there, like, what? You know, I just signed a 3-year, $2.1 million contract. I had just been through all that to go to the NFL. And now 4 days before graduation, you're telling me I can't do it, right? And my mom always said, you know, life's not fair.
Right.
And it's a different type of experience when you're experiencing that in real time. And I was like, did he give you a reason? And he was like, no. I was like, is there an appeal process for this? He was like, no, it's final decision. Like, you got a commission. And I'm just like what? Like, and it's crazy because in that time, you know, I had a lot of decisions to make because I knew once I commissioned, I would be under big Navy policy. Right. And it was just going to be harder to make this happen. And so I had some people like, oh, maybe you shouldn't graduate, this and that. But I was class president. I had to give a speech. You know, like, these are monumental moments. It's like, I'm not about to throw that away because it is. And so I decided not to tell anybody but my family and those close to me because I didn't want graduation to all of a sudden come about me. Right. Like, I wanted it to stay focused on my classmates. And so I just kept it under the radar. But in doing that, I was kind of living like a double life for a week because people still, oh, how's Tampa? Oh, you going back? This and that. Like, I'm literally doing interviews on ESPN.
I can't even.
You know, NFL Network. Like, I'm doing all these interviews. Like, people, I just feel like a fraud.
Yeah.
Like, and I mean, I go to graduation. I give the speech, right? Like, what an experience. But it's funny because nobody in that audience really knew. Like, you know, it's thousands of people in the stadium. They didn't know what I was going through.
I saw the photo with you and Vice President Kamala Harris. Yeah. And you're all smiles.
All smiles. You wouldn't know.
I would never have thought that this is happening at that moment.
You know what I mean? It's like, you know, the Bible says the Lord doesn't give you a spirit of fear. Yeah. You know, He gives you that spirit of strength, right? And
that's what you looked like. You looked like basically proud that you were up there.
100%.
You looked like there's things. I'm about to do great things, right? You know, and I would never have thought 100% that this was all happening.
I couldn't let them see me down.
Yeah,
you know, it's like, and I mean, the acting secretary of the Navy was at our graduation, shook his hand. You know what I mean? Yeah. And it's like he probably didn't even know I was the guy he denied, right?
Yeah.
And so it's tough when life hits you with situations like that are literally out of your control and you can't do anything about it. But all you have, the only thing you have ability to do is control how you respond.
Yeah.
And so I always try to respond taking the higher road, right? So, I mean, I give that speech, you know, it was hard for me. I'm not gonna act like it wasn't hard, but like you just said, you wouldn't have known.
Yeah.
Because that was big for me to be there, give my best for my classmates, get up there, give my speech as if I still had everything going well for me, because they deserved that. They didn't deserve me to get up there and be moping and crying and complaining. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah,
this wasn't about me. This was about my class, and this is a monumental moment.
Very
like, you're
smart.
graduating from the
Very
number one
good.
public school in the country.
Yeah.
Like, commissioned as an officer in the Navy. Like, that's one of the things that people get mistaken sometimes. They think I didn't want to serve. I'm like, I went to the Navy knowing I was going to serve. Like, what are you talking about, right? I just wanted to do something that everybody else was doing.
Right.
And on top of that, that same year, Air Force had 3 players, Army had 1 player. They all got approved. I was the only one that got denied. And I think that's the only thing that bothers me the most is, like, why aren't people, like, really paying attention to that aspect more? You know what I'm saying? Like, you got 3 players from Air Force, 1 player from West Point, and it's 1 Navy guy that gets denied. Yet you're trying to say I'm not trying to serve, but you're only talking about me. You're not talking about them.
Yeah.
You're only talking about me. And I strategically made sure to do everything the right way at the academy. Not saying that I was perfect, but honor roll student, right? Never had my GPA slip below 3.0. Team captain, class president. No honor offenses, no conduct offenses. Very involved in the school, right? Because not that I knew I was going to go to the NFL, but I never wanted to have anybody to be able to point at something, be like, maybe this is why.
But the thing is, though, is that people are gonna point.
Regardless.
And I think that I get what you're saying.
Yeah.
And you did everything within your control, but it doesn't matter.
It doesn't matter. People gonna talk.
People are gonna talk.
And, you know,
people are gonna hate no matter what, right?
Yeah.
It's like,
it's funny. I was reading the book of John, and it's talking about Jesus, right? And he says, you know, John the Baptist came, and he was in the wilderness, right? Didn't drink, didn't do any of the debauchery, like, and people looked at him as if he was some kind of crazy person, like, because he was so isolated, so focused on God. He said, then I came into the world, and I'm social, you know, I'm drinking, I'm eating, and now I'm a drunkard, and somebody who's on who's gluttony, I think is the word. But basically, he was saying, like, dang if you do, dang if you don't, right? You know what I'm saying? Like, people are always gonna say something about you, right?
Yes, no matter what.
I wish I knew that at the time, but but yeah,
because that's what human nature really comes down to, is that, you know, people just want to really offend people.
Yeah,
whether it's deep subconsciously, whether it's overt, they just want to get you. You know, and then I got it.
Exactly, and that's why you can't really pay it any mind. Like, you can't live your life trying to approve people, but to get approval from people, because people's opinions change every day. And so when you try to please something, like, people ask, like, why do you believe in God?
Yeah,
because I'm like, God is consistent.
Same
I know what
day.
I'm striving for every single day when I'm working to please God.
Yeah.
But when I'm trying to please people, when I'm trying to get the approval of somebody else, man, one day they're rocking with me, the next day they aren't. One day they like this, the next day they don't. I'm like, it's too inconsistent. Why would I focus on pleasing them when I got a God who's consistent and has already outlined what he expects from me? So that's kind of another lesson that I've learned from that. But yeah, so that's where I am in that moment, man. I graduate, I commission, and now it's like what now?
Yeah.
Right? And
well, because here's the thing that I read.
Right.
And I just want to know, because you were not telling anybody. So I read that Senator Marco Rubio wrote a letter on your behalf.
Well, this is how we got there. This is how we got there. So boom, I graduate. I go back to Tampa to get my stuff. Whatever. Don't really tell any other rookies except for a couple. But I get my stuff. I go back to Memphis. Right after you graduate from the academy, you get 30 days of leave, paid leave, and it's like, I had some people like, oh, you should just stay in Tampa, like, continue to work out and stuff. You're going to leave. I'm like, nope, I can't give them a reason. You know, if I do that, I look defiant. And so we're trying to work, me and my agency, some people I know, we're trying to work the back channels. You know, I'm writing letters to my senator, trying to find some people in the government, military, like, try to get something shape. And nothing's happening. And so mandatory minicamp reporting date was like June 7th. You don't report the minicamp, you're not going to be on the team. Right? Like, mandatory minicamp is everybody. Right. It don't matter if you're Tom Brady or the Dominican Sue, Devin White, like, everybody got to be there. Right. And so at this point, I've missed OTAs, I've missed workouts, and, like, that was so vital for me because as an undrafted rookie, as I said, it's a mountain to climb. Right. Also come from Navy, it's like, we have a great program, but we don't have all the resources these other programs have.
Right.
And so when I was in Tampa, I finally felt like I was on an even playing field.
Right.
Literally had everything I need from nutrition, recovery. Like it was, I knew my trajectory was about to be crazy.
Right.
And then now I'm missing all that. So now I got reporters DMing me from Tampa like, hey, haven't seen you out here. What's going on? Because like I said, they was writing articles about me when I was in minicamp. Like they're like,
I saw them.
Yeah. They're like, what's going on? And so I'm not responding. I'm like, I'm like, you'll see in a couple of days. You know,
Right.
Mandatory minicamp comes around, still don't have any answers. So I just put out a statement, right? And I'm not thinking much of it. I just put out a statement detailing what happened. I'm like, I got denied. Like, wasn't given a reasoning. 4 other academy guys this year are doing it. Like 3 academy guys last year used the policy. I'm just kind of trying to see what happened with me. So I just put that out. And I tweet that statement out, posted on Instagram, and that thing blew up. Like blew up instantly. And it was so crazy because it started off like interviews just in Memphis, right? I'm doing local interviews. Like literally, I spend that first day driving around from news station to news station to news station in Memphis. I'm getting exhausted, right? But it's kind of, at the same time, it's kind of cool. You getting a little bit of recognition, just human nature. It's cool to see people care about you. They care about your story. Like I'm going in a grocery store, like people are recognizing me from the TV. It's pretty cool. But then, these interviews start picking up. I'm doing more and more interviews every day. Now I'm not working out because I'm sitting in front of a Zoom camera every day.
Right.
And on top of that, the more publicity the story got, the more comments were coming into social media. People like, oh, he needs to shut up and serve, or oh, he's wasting slots, like he's a waste of time, blah, blah, whatever. People have their opinion, but it's affected me a little bit, right? And like I said, the interview process was cool. Like I'm on CNN with Don Lemon, I'm on Fox and Friends, Good Morning America. Like it's like, man, this is crazy. My story is nationwide, right? But that goes on for about 2 weeks and it dies down after. So I'm like,
because everything has a shelf life.
Yeah. So I'm like, it is what it is. Like, cool, people know about the story now, but nothing's changed. Like even people are in the Armed Forces Committee meeting on the Hill, and they're asking the acting Secretary of the Navy, like, yo, why are you not approving them? And he's like, well, David Robinson, Roger Staubach, people that played 50 years before me, whatever. He's like, they served first. But I'm like, whatever. Like at this point, I'm like, I don't get it. But it's time for me to transition and just focus on the military. Right. And so as I'm making that transition, like I'm hanging out with some friends one night, and one of my boys is like, yo, did you see Twitter? I'm like, no, what you talking about? Right. And he's like, Marco Rubio just tweeted you. Truth be told, I didn't know who he was at the time. Just truth be told. And so I get on Twitter and I see, as a senator, and I'm like, cool. And he's like, I plan on writing a letter to President Biden. Like President Biden, he's gonna see this, and this is the president of the country. He got more stuff to worry about.
Right.
I don't think anything of it, right? And so I'm in Memphis like until the last week of June, and I'm getting the weekend before I'm getting ready to head back. I get a call from the assistant to the assistant secretary of the Navy, and he's like, "Hey, we want to meet with you when you get back to Annapolis on like Monday or Tuesday."
Right.
I'm like, "Okay, cool." I was like, "What about it?" They was like, "We can't really disclose it. You just got to meet with you at the academy." So cool. I get back to the academy and we meet in the same room where I got denied by the commandant. And they called me in there and they're like, we think we found a loophole. I'm like, oh, so there is an appeal process after a month, but whatever. And so we end up submitting a package to get my commissioning taken away to get my package re-reviewed.
Right.
And they were like, it's not a guarantee, but this is the only option we have. And then I think it was like July 5th, I got a call from the Secretary of Defense, and he was like, we made that. Well, so actually, July 5th, that morning, I got a call from the assistant again, and he was like, hey, be on standby for a call from the Secretary of Defense with his decision. And so after that, I just got on Twitter and tweeted God's plan. And it was quoted by a reporter from the Pentagon saying, Secretary of Defense set to reverse the decision, blah, blah, blah. I'm like, what? So then my phone instantly started blowing up. People are like, oh, this is true. I'm like, man, I don't know. Like, all I was told was to wait for a phone call. Yeah. I'm not getting my hopes up. I've learned that lesson. I'm not doing it. And so then later that afternoon, man, I got a call from the Secretary of Defense, Secretary Austin. And
you actually
called my cell phone.
You called your cell phone.
So I'm driving home. I had just left the golf range and hanging out with some friends. I'm driving home. I'm in Maryland. And I get a call. And I'm like, who is this? It's like the area code for Arlington, Virginia. Right. I'm like, answer the phone. I'm like, hello. He was like, "Hello, is this Cameron?" I'm like, "Yeah, this is Cameron." Like, who is this? He's like, "Hey, this is Secretary Austin." I was like, "Oh," I was like, "My bad." So we talked, and yeah, he was just saying he's really behind it, and it felt good to hear that from him. Like, the Secretary of Defense is behind it, right? So everybody else was talking about the policy, like the Secretary of Defense is supporting it, and so he made the reversal to allow me to go back down. And then the next day, I got a call from the chairman of the Joint Chief of Staff, General Milley. While I was working out, he calls me. I'm like, "Hello, is this?" And it's
what in the world?
So I'm like, "Oh snap!"
What in the world?
I stopped working out, but he tells me something crazy. I'm like, and so we talking. He's like, "Yeah, I'm super behind it." I'm like, "Sir, if you don't mind me asking, like, I appreciate you and your support. I'm just trying to find a disconnect. Like, how did everything get turned around? Like, why wasn't there any input?" He was like, "Well, it never made it up to the desk for the Secretary of Defense. It got denied by the acting Secretary of Navy." He was like, "But then President Biden came to him and asked him about the situation and was like, hey, figure out something to do about this." And so the president... Yeah.
You want to know, though? That just tells me right there that football is king in America. You know, when the president's there going, "Hey, we got a problem."
Well, they don't like the attention, negative attention going to the military, right? Yeah. Which I wasn't trying to bring any negative attention.
No. You're just telling your side.
Exactly.
And the thing is that you didn't say, "Oh, and then they did this." And then they did that.
No, I kept it. This is what's going on.
You kept it 100, and it's the truth, right? But people are gonna take it and break it down and look at it. That's the worst part about words, is that people can try to insinuate all the time.
Yeah.
Because it's like, if it's not all expletive, then it could be inferred that this is this. And so then you're trying to take an inference in something that was never supposed to be that. And so, it's the worst part about words, especially Twitter, because you can't be very descriptive.
Yeah,
you're limited.
And then people saying stuff like, you can't respond because as soon as you respond, you're gonna get labeled.
No, you don't want to do that too. Because then you get into this whole entire war, and then it's just like, what is this?
And so you just ignore it and take the higher road. And for me, it fortunately ended up working out finally, right? And so so I get that call. He tells me how everything went down. And so now this is July 6th, July 7th. I got to report to training camp for 2 weeks. Yeah. Right? And so during that time, I've been working out a little bit, but not working out like I should have been. Right. Like, just truth be told, that's one of the biggest regrets I have. But I just had to protect my mental health during that time because it was just rough and it was draining. And so now I get the opportunity to go back down there. But truth be told, I didn't feel like I was on the even playing field again, right? And I knew I had an uphill mountain to climb. Like, I missed all the workouts, OTAs, mandatory minicamp. And I'm like, man, at this point, I was like, I really wish they just didn't reverse it. Because then I would have never had to wonder what would have happened. My last memory of football would have been, balling out rookie minicamp. Who knew what could have been, like a 30 for 30 type. But now I'm like, now I got an opportunity to fail again. And then everybody was saying, oh, he's not good enough to play anyway, he's going to be right.
But here's the way I look at it, is that it's not that you're not good enough. It's the fact that it was that decision. You had to mentally lock yourself into what you would lock yourself into at that point. You had no idea that your little tweet was going to make it to Senator Marco Rubio.
Yeah, you don't.
You had no idea. You had no idea that the president was going to get involved.
Yeah,
you had no idea. So now you're going there to do this. Yeah. And let's face it, you're probably not in the greatest mental headspace at that point, because you've been stressing over this and stressing over that.
You get it, right? So you're one of the few that get it.
To me, it's like, that's something that you can't overcome.
To an extent, I agree.
Because it's like, I need to know these things. I need to know what's going on.
Oh, 1,000%.
People, and it's not easy. Yeah. I mean, being a professional athlete of anything is not easy.
Oh, no.
Right? But people need those things that are lined up. And now all of a sudden, you're throwing this on you. You're throwing this on you. When it should be just concentrating.
Exactly, on football.
Exactly.
And that was the first time in my life when I was there in rookie minicamp that I was only focused on football.
Yeah.
Naval Academy, you're balancing academics, military, social life, and football.
Yeah.
And it's a real academic institution. Yeah. Like, you're taking electrical engineering, chemistry, physics, calculus. So it's like, to be able to just focus on football, I was like, man, my potential is this. The sky's the limit. Right. And so I get back down there to Tampa, and first couple weeks I'm struggling. Yeah. Like just struggling real bad. Like no confidence, no swagger like I had the first time I was down there, and it was rough, man. And I was just like not happy. Yeah. Like that time in Tampa, I was just not happy. I was like, man, this sucks. You know, and like don't get me wrong, like I'm in the meeting room with Tom Brady.
Yeah, you know what I'm saying? Yeah. Like that was gonna be one of my questions.
Yeah,
like, did you beat Tom Brady? Yeah.
Like I met Tom Brady. I'm on the same field against Tom Brady. I'm going against Tom Brady. Like these people won't be able to say that in their life, right? So I'm lining up.
What a blessing that must have been.
Oh, for sure.
You had to line up against the GOAT.
Yeah, for sure. it feels surreal, right? Yeah. Like it just feels unreal when I think about it. But like that's what I was doing. Yeah. And it's like anybody else would have been happy to be in my situation, but for some reason I just felt like this wasn't how it was supposed to be scripted. That's how I felt. Right. I felt like it wasn't supposed to be scripted like that. And so halfway through training camp, like the first like month of training camp, first couple weeks, I'm down there. I got another sponsor family in Maryland. They just so happened to be in Tampa. And I hadn't gotten my graduation gift from them yet. They're like, hey, can we just meet you in the hotel, give you your gift? I'm like, yeah, cool, I got some time. And I'm talking with them, and they're like, you know, how's things going? I said, I'm not gonna lie, like I'm struggling. Yeah. Like don't feel like I'm supposed to be down here. Like I just can't get into a groove. Like I'm just not happy. It doesn't feel the same. And it's crazy. Their gift for me was the Maxwell Leadership Bible, and great commentary in that Bible. And they just prayed for me that night, you know, and it just did something to my spirit. And when I got back to my hotel room, I was like, you know, you're here for a reason, you know, like don't sit in this time worrying so much that you're not appreciating, you know.
That's amazing. Yeah, that's amazing, because the thing is too is that that was one of the questions I'm going to ask you is like, even though you miss all that time, did you appreciate being on that field with some of these guys?
I do now.
Can't say at that moment then, no.
Can't say I did. Can't say I did because I was just so worried about failing. Yeah. And I was so worried about, like I said, I did interviews on all the major networks in the U.S. And so you know how media works. When a story ends, the story has to get reported on again. Yeah. And so I'm like, as soon as I get cut, it's going to be blasted on these networks again, right? Then I got to look at people's comments again. And I hate that was my mindset, but that's just, I couldn't get out of it, right?
Well, it's hard when you're in that, right? Yeah, and that's stuck. The thing is that you were directly in that. It's not like, I mean, you're removed from that.
Right. It's like, this was my reality. And so, so after I meet with my sponsor parents, though, they pray for me, my spirit gets renewed, I just flipped the switch, you know? And at this point, it's about 2.5 weeks in the training camp, 3 weeks in, which is honestly probably too late, but I'm balling now, right? Yeah. I'm starting to look like the same guy that was down there, rookie minicamp, making plays on the ball, moving around a lot better. I'm like, you know, I might have a chance if I keep this up. First preseason game rolls around against the Bengals. My parents fly in, Little League coaches fly in, like one of my big brother's best friend, like a big brother me, he comes up for the game. Like, man, it's, you know, it's great to be around family. Yeah. And I mean, I'm on the NFL field, like in Raymond James Stadium. Like, this is the NFL. You know what I'm saying? Like, I'm on the NFL field, and I'm out here playing in the NFL. Yeah. Like, I'm looking at my jersey, and I'm looking at my name on the back of an NFL jersey. Putting on NFL. Like, it's crazy. Yeah. And I have a pretty solid preseason game. Finished second in tackles. Don't give up any big catches.
Like five tackles?
Yeah, like 5 or 6, something like that. Don't give up any big plays. You know, made a couple mistakes, of course, but I was coming downhill. Like, tackling was my weakness my whole career. Right. And in that game, I was making every tackle I need to make. Yeah. And it's like, I was like walking off that field, like, you know, I made it to another week. Yeah. Because that was the biggest thing. Like, cuts are after every preseason game. I was like, I at least bought myself another week and another chance, right? That's the worst thing you do in life, though, is to feel like you're entitled to another opportunity. And so, whatever, I meet with my parents after the game. We're in the hotel, chilling. Like, they're all like super excited. Like, man, like, you know, I'm proud. Like, and my parents didn't get to see me play my senior year in college for real because of COVID. Right. And so that was an opportunity for them to see me on the field again, like in the NFL, living out. To see your child living out his dream. Yeah. I know that had to be special for them. Even like my little league coaches and my big brothers, like, to be able to see me doing that, it had to be like, you know, like, look at that man. Yeah. And I remember the next day we all went to brunch, and they're all super excited. Like everybody's like, "Oh, you're gonna have such a great career," talking like speaking into my life. But I just feel uneasy. I'm like, it just I'm not receptive of it, you know.
Yeah.
And I take my parents to the airport. I drop them off there like, "Hey, we'll see you next week. We'll come back down here for when y'all play the Titans." I'm like, "Cool." I'm about to go to the team hotel, so I'm driving to the team hotel to get some rest. And about 10 minutes after dropping them off, I get a call from the Buccaneers. I'm like, "This is weird. It's Sunday. We're off." And so I answer the phone. I'm like, "Hello? Hey, what's going on, Cameron? What you up to?" I'm like, "Nothing much. Just dropped my parents off at the hotel. At the airport. About to go back to the team hotel." And I'm like, "Well, you don't need to do that. Like, we decided to release you today. You're no longer a Buccaneer." And we're talking like less than 12 hours after the game. Whoa. And I'm just sitting there like, what? Are we serious right now? Like, I've been back down there for like a month and some change. Like, and I don't really say anything for a while. They're like, "Hello?" I'm like, "Yeah, I'm here. I got you. I'll be on the way." And so I was like, I'm not going to cry. I was like, I'm going to get to the facility. I don't want them to see me crying, like head held high, Mm-hmm. And I get to the facility, I check out, whatever. Like, they hand you a bag to go clean out your locker. I don't really take anything out my locker just because I'm so sick. Yeah. Looking back, that was foolish of me. I should have took everything, but I was so sick, right? And then I go talk to the GM, go into his office. He's like, "It's a privilege, this and that." I'm like, "Thank you." And so then I get back in my truck and I'm driving to go pick my parents. Well, so after I got off the phone with him, I called my parents. I was like, "Hey, I just got released." Yeah. And my older brother played in the NFL, so they're already familiar with the process. But my mom thought I was joking with her. I was like, "Nah, I wasn't joking about this, man, for real." She's like, "Well, what you want to do?" I'm like, I'm about to go check out, get my stuff in the hotel, and I'm driving back to Memphis today. Like, I don't want to be here. And they're like, "Okay, we'll cancel our flight. Like, pick us up, and we'll drop back with you." And so after I leave the facility, I'm driving back to the hotel to get them. And I'm just driving, and like I can just feel the tears getting heavier and heavier in my eyes. And I'm just trying to just hold it together. Yeah. But then it's like it just all just falls out, and I'm like literally bawling my eyes out driving in Tampa, and I'm asking myself, what's the point?
Yeah.
I was like, truth be told, like this is one of the first times in my life I questioned God. I said, what's the point in believing in God, taking the higher road, doing all things the right way if you're just going to end up like this? I'm like, what was the point of doing all that if I was just going to get cut in the first round? Why would I put myself through all of that just to end up like this? And I was just torn apart, and I picked my parents up from the airport, and that's the whole car ride right back to Memphis for real. Like, I'm banging on the steering wheel, what's the point of this? And I go into a really dark place for probably about a month when I get back to Memphis. Yeah. I'm in a really dark place. Like, I'm ashamed, I'm embarrassed, don't really want to be around anybody. Like, it's just rough. And my dad still coaches at my high school. Like, he was starting to make me come to practice a little bit, but I just didn't feel connected. Got a chance to go see my little brother play, which is I didn't get to do a lot because I played in college too. And it was cool to see him play, but I just didn't feel connected to the game. Mm-hmm. That drive, that passion. Like, I didn't feel like working out. Like, we were still talking to a couple teams, my agents, but it's just like, man, I felt so disconnected and drained. And like I said, I was in a dark place for about a month. And then one of my mentors reached out to me, and she wanted me to come speak to her students. Yeah. And at the time, like, I had done, some stuff on Zoom with her students. I spoke at graduation. I was not formally like a speaker, but I've spoke in interviews and stuff like that.
Whoa. So you're not formally a speaker? Because I'll tell you right now.
I wasn't at the time.
Yeah, because I'll tell you right now, some of your Facebook stuff has been very powerful.
Nah, I appreciate that. Yeah. But at the time, it's like I just like to speak. Yeah. I wasn't really like a formal speaker. Mm-hmm. But she asked me to come speak to her students. She teaches at an alternative school in Memphis. It's like a program that deals with kids who have been in trouble a little bit, and they're trying to get them back on the right path. I'm like, yeah, I come speak to them. I'm like, what you want me to talk to them about? She was just like, talk about your story and some of the lessons that you've learned. And so then I go I agree to it. And as I'm driving to go speak to the students, I'm getting like butterflies and stuff. Mm-hmm. I'm like, it's weird. Same thing I used to get in the locker room pregame. I'm like, this is weird. Like, I spoke at graduation in front of thousands. You know what I'm saying? I've been on national TV. Like, why am I nervous?
Well, here you are right now, and you're about to bear something, right?
I'm like, why am I nervous? And then, like, I go into the room and I see a lot of young black men that look like me, and they just look like they're hungry for something.
Yeah.
You know, like they're hungry for some hope. They're hungry for a push. And I just kind of just like share my story, you know, everything I went through. And it's funny because in that moment when I was sharing my story, I detail everything I just detailed with you, you know, up to the point of me getting cut. And in that moment, I realized, you know, sometimes it's the journey that teaches you a lot about the destination. You know, it's like, like literally in that moment, I said, man, this is crazy. Like, I went through all of that so that I could stand before y'all today to let you know that adversity is not the final thing for you. You know, that the value in life isn't in position, it isn't in paper. It's like, it's in purpose. Right. You know, like, you're going to go through difficult circumstances, like, but you can keep going forward. You can keep prevailing. You can keep moving forward. But in order to do that, like, y'all realize it's not about you. Yeah. You got to remove yourself from the situation. And leaving that school, I felt fulfilled. Yeah. And I started to, that was the beginning point of me to start understanding why I went through everything that I went through. Right. Yeah.
Now, you've also started a podcast called Under the Rug, right? And you're speaking about things within your like black culture,
the black community,
right? And you're able to like bring in some of that stuff that you're talking about as well, into there as well. Like, as much as it must be painful, you have to look at as well the amount of more lives that you could be touching than just playing a sport, right?
Yeah, I'm thankful.
But you have a journey that there's like a fraction of the world's population that can experience some of the things that you've experienced.
And it took me a while to get thankful for that. Yeah. Right? Like I say, I was in a dark place, and I say I go speak there, right? And I wish I could say after that, it was like, oh, back on God's purpose for my life, right? But, you know, when you want something, it's hard to let it go, right? And so, but after I spoke to them, I was like, you know, I'm about to transition, get back into the Navy. Like, I feel like I'm done with football. Right. So I get back into the Navy, man, and it was rough. Like, it was tough being back in the uniform. Not because I wasn't happy to be serving. Right. But I can't even explain it. I can't put it into words. And
I could probably put it into words. I mean, you probably feel discombobulated.
Yeah, you know, and it's like, you can't really speak out about it because you don't want anybody thinking like you're like, I don't know. It was tough, right?
No, how do you keep all that emotion within you, right? Yeah.
And so it's like, I'm TADing at the academy at the time, like, and I go to Intel school. And then that whole time, I'm still kind of finding myself. Right. Like, I'm still... See, when you've been doing something for more than 80% of your life, it becomes a piece, if not the majority of your identity, right? And when you lose that, you're constantly looking for something to fill that empty void. And in those times, like, you might not get fulfillment from you're not looking in the right places to get fulfillment. And so I really started just like looking for the instant gratifications for fulfillment. And it probably took me about 6 months, man, of just realizing I wasn't happy with what I was doing, you know, and then some of the decisions I was making. And like I was turning away from God at that point, right? And he brought me back full circle. And he was like, Cam, you got to understand something. Like, I never left you. Right. You know what I'm saying? I didn't wrong you. He said, I had to take you away from that situation before you left me. Right. And before you lost me. He was like, you weren't ready to handle the notoriety that came with the NFL. Like, just truth be told, like, I don't know if you would have been able to keep your focus on the right things. Right. But now you've been humbled. Yeah. You know what I'm saying? Yeah. Now you know what it feels like to have everything in your hands and lose it all. And to be back at the bottom. You know? Now you know what it feels like. So it's like, I feel like that I feel like 2022 was a big preparation year for me, like coming full circle, right? Yeah. And then I start that podcast with my boy, my best friend back at home, and we talk about some of these issues, and I'm able to provide some insight. And I also, you know, I've gotten into speaking, like, for real, you know, like, that's my passion, that's my purpose, is like speaking, especially to the next generation, is what I love to do. Man. And I wouldn't be doing that. First off, I got to go back to making a decision to go to the Naval Academy. If I never went to the Naval Academy, who's to say I would be doing that? Yeah. If I would have never decided to go to the NFL, I would have never learned all these lessons. And the beautiful thing about it, when I first got back into the military, like I said, I was a little unhappy. It was rough for me. But now it's like I serve happily every day because I realize the value in life isn't in position, it's in purpose. And it doesn't matter if I'm an officer in the military, doesn't matter if I'm a football coach with the local high school, don't matter if I'm out there speaking, that's all the same purpose. It's all a part of my purpose. It doesn't matter what I'm wearing. It doesn't matter if I'm playing football. It doesn't matter if I'm on TV. Like, what matters is the fact that I'm walking in a purpose. And so whether I'm talking to a room full of 10 kids or I'm talking to an arena full of 5,000 people, all of that matters the same.
Yeah.
Like, all of it, I approach the same. Like, same thing in the military. When I'm working with my sailors, it's like, I want to bring them the same passion that I bring the youth or that I bring my football players when I'm coaching them. Because it's all the same purpose.
And just think about it. All those things that you're able to bring into other people just due to this, you know?
Yeah.
I gotta tell you, I think you have bright aspirations, bright future ahead of you still, Cameron. I think that you're going to be doing things that is going to bring you to new heights.
I appreciate that.
More than just a game.
I appreciate that, yeah.
But your story is amazing. This is amazing.
Yeah.
All right. I got one question here right now because I overheard you say something. And I'm from another generation.
Yeah.
We're talking about the NBA. I overheard you say, and you know what? There's two schools of thoughts on this, right?
For sure.
There's LeBron James, and there's Michael, MJ. Now you're the school of thought of LeBron, and I heard your points. I'm just there going, okay.
Yeah. What's the date? What's the date for today?
What's the date today? I think it's the 6th.
It's,
or is it the 7th? It's the 7th now.
February 7th.
Yeah.
So I believe LeBron is like 36 points away as of today.
Smashing.
35 or 36 points away, something like that, of breaking the record for most points ever.
Yeah.
And after he does that tonight, I'm not really even entertaining the GOAT argument anymore. You know, it's done. It's like what else do you need the man to do? I mean, I'm sorry he didn't win all his championships, but I'm like, you know, what else do you need to like? So when it comes to mindset, I'm taking Jordan and Kobe. They had a certain kind of mindset mentality to the game.
Yeah.
But that also for Jordan, it kind of cost him with his image a little bit.
Yeah.
You know, he wasn't really involved outside of the game of basketball. Kobe started to realize that later on in his life. Unfortunately, his life ended early in a tragic event.
Yes.
But LeBron's been doing it the whole time. As far as giving back to the community, being a family man, there's no scandals, no nothing.
Nothing.
It's like, how can you not root for somebody like that? Like people.
Oh, I totally agree with you.
Yeah, people are like,
especially when you heard about the acronym.
You know what I'm saying?
It's like, what in the
people
world?
Like, oh, he cries about the refs. I'm like, yo, like, look at this man impact on the community.
Exactly.
All he does is live his life and play the best basketball. And so then, like, you just look at an all-around basketball player. LeBron can play the 1 through the 5. Jordan and Kobe can't play 1 through 5.
I'll give you that.
This is true. Like, LeBron's the best all-around basketball
I don't know
player.
about center, though. I don't know if he's going to be the best center.
He could be in there. He could give you probably, you know what I'm saying, 18 and 11 if he's down there, right? But it's like, he's the best all-around basketball player to play the game. It's hard to say he's not. Like, he scores, he passes, rebounds. Defense could be a little bit better, but he can play defense when he wants to, right? It's like...
But don't forget, I think this
and
NBA,
longevity.
This NBA, right? Yeah, longevity. I mean, you can't even...
Right, the man's 38 years old.
And he's still averaging,
and he's averaging like 30
a game. It's crazy.
Yeah.
It's crazy. Your pick, Super Bowl coming up.
You know, I used to be a Cowboys fan, so it's really hard for me to say what I'm about to say. It's really hard for me to say what I'm about to say. But I do got a couple boys that play for the Eagles. So I got to go with the Eagles.
Whoa.
And Jalen Hurts is just a dog, man.
He is.
He wants something else. He's hungry.
He does.
He's hungry.
He does. I mean, he looks completely dialed in.
Yeah.
I think Mahomes, I mean, I said what I said about the AFC Championship. I'm not going back down that road again. But the thing is, though, is that Mahomes, you know, he's going to have a hard time in there.
Oh, for sure.
That's going to be a hard time. Sure. That defense is stellar.
Disgusting.
The offense is stellar.
Yeah,
it's crazy.
The Eagles are just good for, and you know, I can't stand Eagles fans. I cannot stand Philadelphia fans. But they're probably going to the Super Bowl. Man. And so I'm not going to let my pride interfere with my prediction, you know. So I got to rock with the Eagles.
Man.
Yeah, I got to rock with the Eagles.
Cameron, thank you so much
thank
for
you,
your
man.
time, my man.
Thank you.
I hope
Thank
we
you. I
have to get
appreciate
to have you back on here.
Oh,
We
yeah.
can talk some more sports there.
yeah.
You know, I told you I might talk to you about hockey, but I'm letting you off the hook.
I gotta read up a little bit on it, man. I gotta read up a little bit.
Yeah, I'm letting you off the hook. So the next time you come on, though, we're talking hockey.
Yeah, I gotta read up on it.
You know, we'll talk some PK Subban. What you think of PK?
Yeah,
Well, he's retired now.
I'm gonna have to look up some stuff. So I don't just sound like I'm talking crazy.
What's he talking about?
So yeah, that's good, man. I appreciate you for having me.
All right.
Good.
Peace, everybody. And hey, if you can't, you should listen to Under the Rug
Oh yeah.
with my boy here, Cameron Kinley. And who's your other?
Tyler Munger. That's my best
There we
friend in
go.
Memphis. Yeah.
Listen to
Under the
that.
Rug podcast. Yeah. Also got a book coming out soon. Book coming out soon.
Hey.
It's called Identity: Finding Purpose Through the Storm.
I'm looking forward to seeing all this there. And we're gonna have you come back on when you have the book out too.
Sounds good. Close to wrapping it up. Close to wrapping it up. So
There it is. All right, everybody. Peace.
Man, tell me you didn't like Cameron. Just lie to me and tell me you didn't like him. What a guy. Listen, even better probably in person. So Cameron, thanks again. We look forward to talking to you soon. Sean, any immediate takeaways you'd like to share from your conversation with Cameron?
You know, it was amazing the way he was talking about, being on that road and just being on that field, his nerves, all of these things that are happening, and he's not able to appreciate everything that's happening in the moment, but he appreciates it now. And wondering why did he get this far only to see it all go away. It was something just to listen to that, to listen to like how he feels, like, like everybody else, when you don't feel that you're going to do great, how you have those fears in your head, how you have that butterflies in your stomach, that it happens to everybody. It doesn't matter who you are. But the whole entire thing though is like, what do you do with it? And that all the way through, even though things might not have looked like the way that it should have turned out, it still turned out the way it's supposed to turn out.
Yeah.
And Cameron's just a rock solid guy. And like I said, I think the future's really bright for this guy going in the future. If he wants to get into public speaking, anything like that, this guy has got the tools, the gifts. And
yeah, I mean, full disclosure, he was probably supposed to be gone when I showed up. He was still here, and then we ended up talking for, I don't know, an hour 45 minutes in the green room. So I kept thinking, man, we should turn the mics on and get this thing going, but we didn't. So we'll have Cameron back on. We'll talk about that. We had a spirited conversation. Sounds like one you guys had about LeBron and Michael, who's the greatest. And so we got some more things to do there.
absolutely.
For sure. I mean, LeBron broke the record tonight while we were sitting here talking. We can talk about how scripted it felt if we want to, but we'll leave that to itself. But
Man.
kudos to LeBron for doing things that few men have done. I, for one, didn't think that record would ever be broken, but here we are. LeBron
It's
doing it in the fewest
unbelievable.
games ever. So shout out to LeBron. They even have this purple glass here just to commemorate the Lakers.
Man. Well, you got a one-on-one question for me.
Anyway, that show ran long, or the interview ran long, so we're going to get out of here pretty quick, but we'll have a little one-on-one just to kind of get it back together. I just lost my one-on-one question.
You lost your one-on-one question?
Yeah.
Uh-oh.
Just give me a second. Maybe get some filler in for me.
All right. I got a one-on-one
let's
question for
hear it.
you. All right. So, if you had a chance, okay, to go up against Conor McGregor or Tyson Fury,
Okay.
who would you pick to go up against? Who would you rather?
What medium? With boxing? Or with just like fighting?
Just straight up fighting. Straight up fighting.
Oh, I'll fight Conor McGregor all day long.
All day long.
All day long.
Didn't he gain some weight? Didn't he go up to like 170, 180?
Them gain as much weight as I got.
Like, he's not 140 no more. He's like 180, maybe.
Okay. That's still not what I got.
Yeah.
And he's still 5'9" or whatever he is.
All right, follow-on
I'm
question.
going to take the champ.
Champ
is here.
Follow-up question. Would you fight George St. Pierre or BJ Penn?
Well, I feel like that's not an appropriate question to ask me. I mean, I'd fight either one of them.
You would?
Yeah. I feel like George would try to like make love to my leg like a dog in heat, but
I saw George St. Pierre
that's his fighting style.
control Georges Larac. I saw that. That was something.
Yeah, but how big is George St. Pierre?
Well, George St. Pierre is what? 5'10",
Maybe.
maybe 210. George Larac was 6'4", 240.
Yeah, but they was with rules. You said we was fighting.
Okay. All right. You get your one-on-one question back. I think you've answered mine very well.
I want to know now about I mean, I'll still give you a different question, but like, who is it for you? Is it Conor McGregor or is it big nasty Tyson Fury?
No, I'd be fighting Conor McGregor as well. No, I wouldn't go up against Tyson Fury. Are you kidding me?
Tyson Fury's a grown man.
That's I'm sorry, the Gypsy King? No.
Him or his brother.
No.
I fight Conor before I fight Tyson Fury's brother.
Yeah. I'll take my chances, thank you.
You got a fighting chance with them other two. Them Fury brothers are big. They are big. I want to talk about Saturday morning cartoons.
Oh.
Well, you're a little bit older. Maybe you don't have these same cartoon memories that I do. Let's see. What was the better cartoon for you on Saturday mornings? Is it Bugs Bunny or is it the Flintstones?
Flintstones was an everyday cartoon for me. And that was 5 days a week. So
Did you still watch it on Saturdays?
No, because it was on 5 days a week. So Saturdays was always Bugs Bunny though. That was the cream of the crop.
Bugs is the king.
Yeah. Then Tom and Jerry after that.
Yeah, Tom and Jerry are probably better than Bugs Bunny actually. Now that I think about it.
You high?
Maybe. No, but think about now. Like, what would you watch now? Would you rather watch Bugs Bunny now or Tom and Jerry now?
Oh, I still watch Bugs Bunny. You can't even watch Bugs Bunny now.
Why? I just watched Tom and Jerry the other week. Maybe we outlast them.
Yeah, you can watch Tom and Jerry, but Bugs Bunny now, you can't watch half the stuff. Because it's like people are getting anvils on their head. Like kids are just... Kids don't know. Kids don't know.
It sounds like the Tom and Jerry conversation versus Bugs Bunny is the same as LeBron versus Michael. It's going to have to wait till later to find out who the GOAT is. We'll be back later, kids. The A&B show one last time. See you next time. Be good or be good at it.
Righto.